Hey, what's up, guys? I'm David DeMuzio with Hair Loss Hope, and today we have a special guest on the channel. My friend Killian, the hair loss chemist from Ireland, is going to be talking about his experience doing both FUE and FUT surgery. Not his experience actually doing them, but having them done to him. So he's a patient that's been through both, and Killian has a very unique perspective because he professionally is a pharmaceutical chemist. So he's a very science-minded person, and he's very detail oriented. And so I thought it would be really interesting to get his take being a patient of those surgeries, and he's about to go back for a third hair transplant, which I personally don't think that he needs, but that's just me. It's his personal decision, and he's going to get an FUT surgery. So I want to know, first off, Killian, why are you going to get an FUT surgery for your third surgery after having both FUE and FUT surgeries done previously?
Well, that is a complex answer that might take me a few minutes to explain, if that's okay.
Please do.
So, let's go back to the beginning. So, at 23, I wanted to get the strip. Now, I was offered the choice of an FUE or an FUT, but from doing my research, it seemed like a no-brainer that FUT was the way to go. Now, that is atypical for my generation because all the guys are getting FUE. I don't understand why. Maybe it's the fear of the strip scar, but we can talk all about this. I had the strip, and why I chose it was because it leaves the donor in the most pristine condition possible. So everything above and below the strip scar and to the left and the right of it is virgin. It's untouched. The density doesn't get altered. And this was indeed the case after getting it done. It was essentially as if the donor was left in the exact same situation, except I have a scar that goes back here that is very easily concealed by keeping the hair a little bit longer above the scar. People think that, oh, you have to keep the hair longer on the back of your head altogether. You don't. I mean, I can do a fade haircut, no problem. So then fast forward, and my next surgery, so the FT was 1,500, and the next surgery is 1,000 grafts to do some temporal peak reconstruction and a teeny bit of hairline refinement. Now, the 1,000 graft FUE that we did this time, I can definitely attest by looking at the difference of both of them, two things. One, there was donor thinning. So it depletes it at a higher rate than strip because, as I was saying, with strip, the density was the exact same. With FUE, now, when I cut to a grade 2 haircut, I can see the difference. I can see the area where it's a bit thinner. And if you look closely, you can see hundreds of these dot scars. This is for two reasons. One, my hair is straighter so you could visibly see into it. And then the second thing is, as scar tissue matures, it becomes a smooth surface, which light reflects evenly off of. Now, the light will reflect at the same angle as it hits the surface, causing the reflectant, the scar tissue, to stand out. This is called specular reflection. So that there's a science behind why we perceive with the naked eye FUE scarring. So another thing to look at, which is quite interesting, is there a difference between the FUT hair that was harvested and the FUE? And there is in terms of density. So I have had my entire hairline, for the most of it, reconstructed with strip. And I firmly believe, because I did it as the FUT, the strip, I got the most density possible. And I would not be able to achieve this result today if I had done it as an FUE, because uniformly the thickest grafts are in that region where we take the strip. Now, on this side here, this is the interesting bit. This is all FUT up in the corners, right? Whereas here, this is FUE. And you can see straight away there's a difference in density because FUE has a combination of hair of different caliber. It's not as uniform in terms of harvesting that denser hair. So a very long answer, but I hope it explains why we see these differences.
Cool. That was very well explained. And for anyone that doesn't completely understand some of the things that Killian said, because unless you've been through it personally, it is a bit hard to sort of comprehend. I wanted to talk about what he means when he says that you get the best hair. Well, on most everyone, and it changes from person to person based on your donor hair, you have the densest, thickest, ropiest, strongest hair around this, what they call the center core. So around this area. So you'll notice that people's hair sort of gets a little bit thinner as you go down towards the bottom and a little thinner towards the top. And I know for me personally, I have a very big difference in that area. So I have like this super, super dense, thick center core to the point that now when I go get my hair cut, I have to ask the barber to thin the sides, like thin actually right here next to where the transplanted hair on top begins. Because if I don't get that thinned, then it's gonna not be, what's the word, Killian? It's a good word, homogenized. It's not going to be the same. It's going to look like I have this super thick, almost poofy hair on the side, and then suddenly it gets a little thinner towards the top where it's all, mostly transplanted hair. Everyone sort of varies from person to person. The other thing is that when you said that you don't deplete the donor, I think this is a really important thing to think about. And when you get an FUT surgery, it's almost a free surgery in a sense when looked at compared to FUE. With FUE, you have maybe 2 large FUE surgeries on average that a person can get, 2 major FUE surgeries. And then at that point, there's going to be very obvious donor depletion because you're taking the hair from all around the head. So with a FUT surgery, you just take that great donor hair and then you sew it back together and maybe your hair in the very back at your neck comes up like a quarter of a half a centimeter or something like that. That's, I mean, very, very little noticeable, but
It's a
especially for
better
that.
trade-off.
What's that?
It's a much better trade-off
Yes.
off the bat, isn't it?
So it's like you get this sort of free surgery, especially your first FUT surgery is almost like a free surgery that didn't count towards your FUE surgeries that you could potentially have in the future. Versus it's a little bit the opposite, that if you get, let's say, 2 large FUE surgeries, you've now really depleted a lot of donor. Versus going with like 2 large FUT surgeries, you could then go get 2 more big FUE surgeries. So you're working with so much more hair the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense. It's like in terms of a master plan for the future, if you start with FUT, you can strip yourself out until you can't do any more because the elasticity won't allow it.
Yes.
And the more strips you do, the more you affect the
Yes.
gradation pattern on the back of the head. So you don't want to overdo it. But then you get to do FUE. You have a fresh starting ground. I think this is the most sensible way to do it. But I might just say something there because people are very concerned about this strip scar. And the reality is, your first one, very likely you're going to get a good scar with the trichophytic closure because your elasticity hasn't compromised. Now, what we do find is at the very corners of the scar, at the kind of the ends of them here, we get a little bit of scar widening because they violate Langer's lines of tension, collagen directionality. So we do get that slight stretching on the corners, but it's so small that it can be easily concealed again by having the hair a little bit longer. And the beauty is you can go back to that strip again in the future. And by doing scalp elasticity exercises, this helps mobilize the donor a little bit more and give you improved elasticity for the next time you do it. And we always have the possibility of simply doing a bit of grafting into the scar in the future. And it can be very easily managed. Whereas FUE, when you're done, you're done. If you have thousands of FUE scars, which that scarring will actually add up to more scarring than if you did it the same graft count as a strip, you're finished. You can't repair those scars. It's kind of game over effectively. And this is why it is very sad to see my generation having 4 and 5,000 FUE um, extractions in places like Turkey. There's no coming back from it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is when you sort of blow your load, so to speak, with with that giant surgery up front. There's just so many things that can potentially go wrong. And you might, of course, there are guys that just do really well, that have that one surgery, and we're not trying to talk about the outliers here, though we can talk about them a little bit. But there's those guys that go get a 5,000 graft surgery. All their donor hair is super strong. All their genes work perfectly. They don't have any more hair loss. It's game over. They win the World Series of hair loss and hair transplants. But we're not really talking about that. If you went and you get that giant surgery, maybe if you went to that random place in Turkey, you're not like super familiar. It's not a very famous surgeon with a world-class reputation, with their name on the door when you walk in, and 20 years or 10 years of experience and all the best YouTube videos. Those guys, if you're going to those guys and you're paying top dollar, most likely, and you really know exactly who you're getting and you're in the right position, with your hair loss and your age and all of those things, then it can be perfect. It can be awesome. But let's say you go in there and it's not the perfect surgery, and you're getting 5,000 grafts removed and only 2,000 of them grow, or 2,500 of them grow, or you have a place where there's some necrosis, or your body doesn't react well to lidocaine and you have excessive swelling, and some of the grafts don't grow because of that, because they're popping out, and all the different things that can really go wrong and often do go wrong. Then you end up now having taken so many grafts that you don't really have an opportunity to do anything else. At that point, you're just like, man, I guess I'll try and get some S&P and put a baseball cap on. And there's so many. I have personal friends that this has happened to, versus even if you went to that like lesser, hopefully still well-researched clinic in Turkey, but you're only going there for 1,000 grafts. And then at least at that point, if that's all that they're doing and it doesn't go well, at least you've got some other kind of opportunity because they haven't completely depleted your donor reserves.
I think that's a brilliant point. And these smaller FUE cases is really where FUE comes to fruition. It's where it's a beautiful option, because you can use it for that refinement. Like, let's say you get your strips, right? And hair loss progresses. You have the bulk of your hairline as strip grafts, but some of that hair that was miniaturizing finally goes, and you need to do a little bit of work. Imagine you needed just 300 grafts, 400, this kind of ballpark, to reinforce it and improve it again. That's where FUE is great. To do a tiny bit of temporal work so you can pick more appropriate grafts. This is where it's great, but it's just, as you said, the concern here is using bigger numbers, and its impact on the donor, how it alters it, it's massive at the end of the day. And I just, David, I'll be brutally honest with you. I wouldn't myself in the future like to exceed FUE of maybe 500 grafts. I wouldn't be comfortable with it.
One of the things you said to me before we started chatting about this was just talking about the donor depletion that you had personally because of the shape of the way that your hair grows, like the angle that it grows at. And I thought that was really interesting because that's something I've never heard and never thought about, because me personally, I have kind of wavy hair and it definitely goes down on the side, but you've got more like almost Asian style hair where it sort of grows out. It goes sort of straight away from your head on the sides. And so because of that, Killian was able to see more donor depletion faster, and actually like more scarring is what I guess I'm trying to say, more scarring from the FUE surgery, because the way that his hair grows straight out, it's sort of like when there's that hole and there's nothing, there's no hair growing down to cover the hole, then you just sort of see this tiny, all these tiny little holes, versus someone whose hair grows straight down. You're gonna have all these tiny little holes, but you're gonna have all these hairs covering those holes. So it's just kind of a different thing, and it works out differently. So it's very interesting to think about this as a potential patient, before you get the surgery done.
Definitely. And again, only though when the light is at a certain angle that you can see this. If I'm, for example, if the sunlight isn't directly shining on that area, you see nothing.
Yeah.
It looks perfectly normal. So it all goes back to that reflection of light. In terms of how light bounces off is a big thing with this. But of course, we can't control that. So it's going to be the case where it'll be visible, possibly. But as we said, it depends on your hair characteristics. And, but by no means, let's just set the record straight here. I am not over harvested. I had a beautiful random extraction, but at the same time, it's important to talk about the reality and what I have experienced. And I'm very glad that I didn't do double the amount, because 1,000 grafts is pretty small by today's standards. The norm is way more, and I'm very happy I didn't exceed it.